We got
Yeah.
folks in LA, Mexico City, India. So we are global here today and all warmed up and ready. So I'm going to send it over to my Finnish Brazilian colleague who can help kick things off.
Yeah, although Brian looks like he's in Finland much more than I do.
Yes.
Living Aurora Borealis background, getting cold vibes. So today we will look at something really exciting that Carly and Michael have created for us. I actually have no idea what's coming. So this is going to be really cool. But what I do know is that we're going to be looking at two different vibe coding tools using at least similar, if not exactly the same prompts and just seeing like how they differentiate. And this is really a topic that we get a lot of questions about because a lot of us are kind of like out there vibe coding and a lot of us don't come from coding. Like a lot of us just don't know much about coding or development. So when we start using AI for things that we are not necessarily experts in, there are sometimes more questions than answers that come up. And I'm sure that today is the perfect moment for you to not only see how it might look like in action, but also get Carlene's and Michael's expertise and answers. So feel free to use the chat feature. Scott's going to be there. I'm going to be there. And the floor is yours. Carlene, are you the one with the slides?
Yes,
So we're going to get started. Yeah. So just that come up, feel free to ask in the chat and we'll pop them up.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria and staff, for the introduction and welcoming everyone. I'm going to get the screen share going right now. Presentation. Just give me a thumbs up. Everybody can see. Yeah. Okay.
Looks good.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So welcome everyone. So glad you're here. We're really excited to be sharing this time with you all to take you on the journey of vibe coding and learning a little more about Replit and Lovable. Those are the two vibe coding tools that we're going to use today. And so during our time together, we're going to do a brief overview of what vibe coding is, take you on the journey of going through the process of what we went through with our prompts and what each system did. And then we're going to see, how did they do? What are some of the similarities? What are some of the differences? And see how they performed. And then we're going to expose these, kind of like go through who we think is the winner. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So before we get started, Mike and I will do some brief introductions. So I'll go ahead and do mine. So my name is Cara Lene. I am the owner of Partnerwork Innovations, where I work with startups and SMBs to help them with AI adoption and implementation, and also with a bit of an expertise in AI-driven product development. And so that's what I've been focusing on recently. I have a background in product, also human-centered design, and as well as startups. I worked at IDEO, which was a design firm, for about 5 years, doing business development. I've also done work in startup world here in Chicago and was a Techstars alum. And then most recently, adjunct professor at Dominican University. And I partner with 1871 here in Chicago, which is a big innovation hub to help them produce events around AI. I've been building with vibe coding tools this whole year, the start of this whole year. It's been a journey and has been fascinating, and looking forward to jumping into all of that today. So I'll pass the mic over to Mike.
And that was very impressive, Carlin. I will just say, I've been in the business world since the late '90s, early '90s, mid '90s. I don't know. It's been a while. And I spent a career doing marketing work in mostly trade associations and nonprofits. A couple years ago, I broke off and started my own agency, primarily doing marketing. And then earlier this year, I discovered vibe coding. Late last year, I discovered Chip. Earlier this year, I discovered vibe coding. So this summer, I completely transformed my entire business. And now all I'm doing is focusing on AI. So a lot of what I'm doing, it's kind of similar to what Carlene's doing. I am working with small businesses and nonprofits to help them with AI adoption. I've spent an inordinate amount of time vibe coding things. So I'm actually trying to launch businesses with each project that I build.
Mike,
So
can I interrupt you? Because
yeah,
I just
sure.
have to say it's so incredible how you have reinvented yourself in a matter of months. And I just like want to applaud you. We talk about like what a unique moment this is, but it's like in a few months you became an expert in a field that's only a few years old, and thus you're also now like one of the longest tenured experts, which is so cool. So I just love how you dove in, and I just like big props for that. It's so cool.
Well, I appreciate that. That's the amazing part to me is, for my entire career, I was seeking to be passionate about something. And I found it this year. I love doing this. I love what you can create an event with vibe coding. And so I'm all in, and that's why I'm doing it. So that's just a little bit about me. I work from home. My partners and my two dogs, they're sleeping on the floor right now. So if they wake up and bark, I apologize. But I'm excited for this presentation. Carlene and I tried to do something like this at ChipCon in North Dakota. It didn't go as smoothly as we had hoped, and but we're ready to go now. If you want to jump to the next slide. So before we start, I know you all are here for a live demo, and we're going to give that to you. But we're really treating this kind of like a baking show or a cooking show, right? We went and we built a couple of projects beforehand, and we're going to walk through what we did and how we did that. But in the interest of the whole live demo thing as well, we're going to build something for you live because it takes a little bit of time. It's going to do it in the background while we talk about our projects. So if I can steal the screen here, because I want you guys to see that I'm doing this live and in action. I'm going to bring up my lovable screen. Tell me you can see that.
We can see it.
Alrighty, and then I'm going to go over here and grab my prompt. And what we decided to build is a app called Text Mood Analyzer, and it's basically a mood ring that evaluates your statements for your mood. So we're going to use the same prompt. I'm going to stick that right here into Lovable, and I'm going to set it off on its work. And that's going to start doing that. We'll have it do that in the background, and then we'll go and talk about other stuff. So that's actually working now. You saw that. That's it's going. Let's get back to the presentation. Carlene, this is you.
I was muted. That's why.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to go and throw mine in the Replit, same as my did in Lovable, but I'm going to put mine in Replit and we're going to let it go.
So just to check, you're using the exact same prompt, right? Like literally exactly the same.
Yep.
And
I'll just attach mine as a text code. Yep. That's marked down.
Actually, I have a prompt generator that uses the ripen format. So that's what we did to build the prompt. I learned that from Scott.
That's great. I'm glad something stuck. That's what teachers want.
All right. But what's all the hype? So we're all here today to talk about vibe coding. And, I'm not sure where everyone is in their journey here with vibe coding, but we just wanted to kind of get like a primer onto like setting the foundation of why we're here. So you may have heard all the hype about it, but it's not hype all the way. So it's fundamentally changing how technology products are being built and who has the power to create them, and also allowing us to unlock creativity and new ways of building product. I've talked to engineers who have been in the game for 20 to 30 years. I've talked to people who have been coding for 2 years, and they all have really honed in and really have really embraced the idea of vibe coding, and also sometimes called AI coding assistants or AI powered coding agents, to help them do their jobs better. So it's increasing their capabilities and what they're able to produce. It's also accelerating development timelines and allowing people to bring something to life within a matter of 1 to 2 days, which used to take 3 weeks or could take 6 months. So we're now in a moment with technological change where things can happen that fast and you can get feedback and also have paying customers within 2 weeks. And so I'll go into a little bit later about some of the things that Replit has done to increase that being that partner to help people with coding and to bringing their ideas to life. And so what is vibe coding? Simply put, vibe coding is you're able to say plain speech, give it to AI. You can either use a voice dictation app so you can speak it into your agent, or you can type it in and the AI will build the thing for you. So in many cases, you never have to know code. You never have to look at the code at all. I definitely encourage people to, after they, give the prompt and speak it or write it, to kind of see what's going on in the back on the back end and look into the code. But with vibe coding, you literally speak and say what you want to build and it does it for you. I gave this screenshot over here just so you can see kind of like where the origins of the word vibe coding came from. This was a post on X earlier in the year with this researcher practitioner kind of like coining that term vibe coding. And as you can see, this was in February of this year. So we're still early. Like it's been a year that Mike and I and a lot of people have been at this. So we're still early, but vibe coding is here. And it's one of the things, again, plain speech into an agent of your choice will show you Replit and Lovable. And then you bring your ideas to life with the agent.
So what we did, we collaborated on this project that we're going to talk about here. And we decided we were going to do something simple. So we both built time tracker apps using Lovable and Replit. And to get there, I have in Claude what I call my app CTO. And that is an agent that I use to help me with planning these vibe coding projects. And so we went in and it was Carlene's idea, and we took it and dropped it into the app CTO. And I had a conversation about how this would unfold. And eventually I came up with a master plan and a prompt doc. The prompt doc included our basic unicorn prompt, which was, it's a one-shot prompt that helps you build straight off the bat. And it also came up with a phased approach where it developed six phases over a period of time. And those documents that it creates in there are the product requirement documents. So we had kind of a two-pronged thought process here to do this. And then the idea all along was we would use the exact same prompts. And we also video recorded our development. So we do have that available if anybody would ever want to watch that.
And one quick second, like I need to go back and make sure Replit is doing that thing. All right. Back in action.
The uncertainty of vibe coding.
We go. And I'll explain a little bit later why I had to go back and do that. But in addition to the prompts that Mike just talked about, we also had some design files that we got from Mike Hines found these on Dribble, which is a website that you can go and see designs of landing pages, dashboards, all kinds of things of that nature, and found these cool screenshots of designs. And so these are some of the designs that we implemented and wanted to see how well the platforms took on the design and were able to execute on them.
So I was responsible for the Lovable build. And just a little overview of Lovable. It's an AI-powered no-code platform that transforms natural language prompts into full-stack web applications instantly, or instantly-ish, we should say. It specializes in rapid prototyping and MVP development. So it allows users of any skill, whether you're like Carlene said, if you're not technical, it still works for you. You could create a polished functional web apps and websites just by describing what you want. With Lovable, it excels at creating robust front ends with strong visual design capabilities. If you want to use a backend, right now it requires integrating with Supabase, which is a third-party tool. They do have their own database environment in beta right now, so it hasn't been released yet. With Lovable, users can build and iterate on applications without writing code. So like I said, if you're a founder or a designer or a non-technical creator, you can quickly take those ideas that are living in your brain and get them into the computer and build them. The version of Lovable that I used for this project, it did require the Supabase integration, and I mentioned the beta release that'll be available soon. I do have access to the beta, but I was out of credit, so I had to use a different account to build this. So we'll see what happens with that next month. So the unicorn prompt. The unicorn prompt, there we go. There's my unicorn. The unicorn prompt is basically, it's a one-shot prompt where you give it to Lovable or Replit or whatever, and you tell it to build all at once. I put a QR code on the screen where I shared the prompt. So if you want to access it, scan that QR code and you can see the prompts that we used. I'll give you a second to do that. Or if you need it, that'll come up again as well later on in the presentation. So what I did was I took this unicorn prompt and I put it into Lovable. And in one shot, this is what it built for me. And again, this QR code on the screen, that'll send you directly to the app. I did publish it if you want to go and use it and check it out. Overall, compared to those screenshots that Carlene showed earlier, the one-shot prompt on Lovable did a nice design of really replicating those images. The timer worked. It was pretty basic. It came up with the summary screens that you could see in the middle image, and then the category customization on the right image. It has daily and weekly use screens. And what was the other thing I wanted to mention? Oh, we gave it 5 prescribed categories, and then we enabled it to add another 5 if you wanted to. And also those categories that were built in or editable. So it worked pretty well. Like I said, it's a basic timer. It does what we wanted it to do. The only edit I actually made after the unicorn prompt is we added this in the middle screen. You could see there that the TimeWise AI assistant is our chip integration. And that was literally the only thing I added after the fact. So this was all in one shot. I was pretty pleased with how that came out. So the complex build was a little bit different. It was the same design concept as the screenshots that we showed before, but I did not use the unicorn prompt. Instead, there were 11 specific prompts that my app CTO came up with, and each was designed to build part of the app. So it was a very iterative build. I put this nice complex image over there because that's kind of what it feels like when you get into these more complex builds. That's the same QR code as before. All the prompts are in the same document. So if you scan it before, you don't have to scan it again. It's the same thing there. So the project flow ended up being 6 phases over what my app CTO called 11 days. Just to kind of start off here, the Claude app CTO likes to exaggerate a lot. And so it planned a 6-phase build over 11 days, but the reality was all phases were completed in a little bit over 2.5 hours. The final integration with chip took about 10 minutes to build and then 20 minutes to refine. So that was a pretty simple integration as well. I will say that these complex builds are where Lovable gets bogged down a little bit. Even though it had the screenshots of the design at the beginning of the project, it quickly abandoned those designs and went off on its own and designed what it wanted. So there were some color specs in the PRDs that I think it pulled from. So I think that's why it went off the rails a little bit. It also struggled a little bit early on, and you'll see that here in a second with how it integrated the category buttons, which surprised me a little bit because normally it handles design pretty well, but this time it like I said, it went off on its own. And then the other thing it handled well, it did start out in dark mode. So it knew that I gave it screenshots, started out in dark mode, and then up until the very end when it switched over to light mode for some reason, which, made no sense to me. So what I had to do at the end was scold it. And you have to stern with these tools sometimes. So these are screenshots of the evolution here. You could see phase 1, it started out in dark mode. You could see the category buttons. They were all easy to use and spelled out well. Phases 2, 3, and 4, it stayed in dark mode, but then it messed up the buttons so they were unreadable. Phase 5 and 6 was the end part of the build where it was supposed to polish the design. It went to light mode, and my opinion, it completely missed the mark. It was 180 degrees from where I wanted it to be. So then I scolded Lovable. I said, "You missed the screenshots." And Lovable unbelievably said, "You never gave me any screenshots." So I had to go back and screenshot the instructions that I had given Lovable and post it back into the chat and say, "Yes, I did, see." And so it apologized to me, and then it fixed everything. The one big thing that it did miss in the build was we built these as progressive web apps. And normally when you build a PWA, you want it to have those app-like buttons and a perpetual menu at the bottom of the screen. And this did not add them in that build. I actually had to go back in this morning and add them after the fact. So If you scan that QR code and you go and you check out this app, you'll see those buttons on there and you can play with that a little bit.
Michael, there's a question from Juan.
Yes.
What was the kind of added benefit, or how did you integrate chip in this one? I mean, obviously you can, and I know that you've both built like different types of chip apps with vibe coding where the chat elements are a bit more prevalent, but like this specific example, what was the feature that you integrated with chip?
Can I get to that later? We actually have a couple slides about that coming up here. So we'll get to that and all your questions will be answered. Well, so how did Lovable do overall? For the unicorn prompt, I was very pleased. I'm not going to lie. I thought it missed on a couple of items, like the category colors. They all stayed red instead of being customized. But I produced a nice looking and functional app. For the complex build, it eventually got there. Because it was an iterative build, it takes a while and you have to be patient because it is going to build. Each prompt builds a different part, and it took longer to see the end result. And then it took a lot more refinement after the 6 phases. That was because it was a more complicated app to build. The one-shot prompt didn't have database integration. The complex build did. And so once you have database integration, that just adds a new level of things to worry about, integrating APIs and things like that. So took a little bit longer, but again, turned out to be a pretty functional app. And if you go check it out, I think you'll agree it did pretty well with hitting all the requirements we had laid out for it.
All right. So now that you all got a little overview of Mind's process with Lovable, I'm going to introduce Replit. So Replit is a tool very similar to Lovable, but it is one of the tools right now that in the beginning, Replit actually began as like an IDE for browsers for engineers. So it was like the first where it was, you didn't have to do all of the setup to get your computer ready. I don't know if any of you have ever like set up a system for coding. But you know, you gotta do all the packages, you gotta install a lot of things. Replit had an IDE browser where all of that was already provided for you. All you needed to do was sign in, have collaborators if you were working with other engineers, and go to town. And so Replit's roots are in coding. And so what they added was an agent. And so that agent is what allows us to do the vibe coding. And so Replit is really, if you want to think about full stack, it's a full stack vibe coding tool that not only creates front end, but also creates a back end Postgres database to start you off. It has a lot of security features in it and allows you to store keys and do encryptions and all of these great things. So Replit is really one of those tools that kind of like tries to cover everything when it comes to software development and creating the environment where people can build off of ideas in less than an hour or two, but also support developers and engineers that might be more senior in their careers. They are always coming out with multiple updates a month about things they added, and they're really trying to make sure that what they're building is going to support long-term, more complex projects, but also those one-off projects that may be for fun or to explore as well. So let's kick it off with what I use for going in with the unicorn prompt. So I use the unicorn prompt, but I also, and I'll show you too, the second or the third kind of approach that I took. So this first one was using the unicorn prompt. And I also, if you all remember Mike mentioning that we had like an MVP master plan that kind of like gave it an overview of what we were building. I took the unicorn prompt and the master plan, gave it to Replit, as you can see on this screen, on the screenshot on the left side, which is in planning mode. And I gave it the prompts and it told me, you know, I'll help you create this. These are the steps and this is what I'm including in it. Let's get started. And as you can see too, one of the things that Replit it does a great job of giving you the option to start with design or build the entire app. So this is a fairly new feature where you can start with the design, which is just looking at the features, the visuals, before you actually start to build in the functionality and back end. So to start with design, also I'll make a note here that it actually does use code. So it uses a lot of front end frameworks and code to create the design, but it doesn't have not the lag, but like you don't have to worry about messing up anything in the back end or the agent doing anything that will cause the front end to get a little wonky. For this instance, I built the entire app because of how we were, testing and going about this. So built the entire app, and this is what it gave me initially. So this bigger screen that you're going to see over here is the timer that it gave me. As you can see, this also was not with the designs. So I didn't put the designs in, and this is what it gave me. As you can see, that button in the middle, like where's that play icon? Like why is it all the way over to the left? The categories are supposed to be have colors. There are no colors there. But I will tell you that from the first shot with the unicorn and the master plan, the app was fully functional. So the timer worked. The reports were there. The settings were there. The recording of your progress, recording of the times of the sessions were all there. The designs were just a little wonky. I will say too, like if you see over in here on the larger screenshot, you can see that Replit was doing testing while it was building the app. So this took a little more time because now with Agent 3 and Replit, it does its own debugging and testing without you even telling it. So it will go and talk to itself and say, let me consult. As you can see here, it says the architect noted some minor styling improvements for future consideration. So it's already thinking ahead and doing these steps before I even tell it to do it. So all in all, the unicorn kickoff for me, functionality was there. The setup and format was there. It just was missing a few things on visual design and what I was asking it to do. And so I'll give you all I think you got a video also of the app. So it also was very good on mobile. So we told it we wanted it to be a PWA mobile optimized, and that's exactly what it did. So it did a great job of that. Functionality was there. The daily and weekly usage were there. And also similar to Mike, if you want to go ahead and try it out, you can scan this QR code. Let me know if it doesn't work, but it should. And you can try it out for yourself on your phone. And so, yeah, I had to tell it, as you can see here in the video, we have colors now. I had to iterate on that and tell it to move that play icon over on the session button. And so, yeah. And it makes a little noise too. I don't know if y'all heard that, but it makes noises too. All right. And so when we looked at the project flow, so now this is going into more of the complex build. I looked at this and took this as, for me, like, okay, each day, it already built out, it's going to build out the whole app because I gave it the prompt and it's going to build it out. But what I did with this was take this each day by day and I did like a quality controller, like a quality check on what it had built. So each day I went through and made sure that it implemented the category system correctly. The audio feedback was there. The summary for the weekly and daily were there. And making sure the final visual and design were correct. Checking with Replit to ask it, have you implemented the accessibility features and things like that. So again, an example of going through the complex build and talking to the agent. It says, I told it, I'd like for the categories to be color coded with distinct accessible for instant recognition. I had to tell it to do that. It did it. And then on the other side, I told it, I need you to make the following update on visual design. So if you all haven't caught on yet, Replit may not be the best all the time at design, but that doesn't mean it doesn't do it because I'll show you later that it actually did do a really good job when I gave it the screenshots. You just have to kind of be patient and work with it and get the agent to kind of do what you want to do and kind of reel it in sometimes and then also tell it where your boundaries are. And so this is how my build evolved. It started again with this wonky icon and no colors in the category. It emerged into having the colors, the icon being there where it's supposed to be. Also, I'll note that in the weekly and daily report, there were supposed to be bar charts. We asked it to do bar charts. Initially, it did not do a bar chart. So I had to tell it in my iterating, hey, I would love to have a bar chart for my weekly and daily reports. It did it. And so that's the evidence of that there. And then that last one, this is when I've tried to take, so you remember the designs that we showed you all that Mike found. I tried to, in the middle of my development build, tell it to switch over to that design, and it did not do a good job. This is the result. It might have changed like the color of the button and the circle, now have the time in it, but it did not meet the standard of like completely taking on and implementing what I told it to do for that. So keep that in mind. This is when I asked it in the middle of development to change the whole design of the timer. And so on the left, this is the unicorn plus the master plan plus design layer. Again, didn't really work out too well. Functionality, totally there. It did its thing. Design wasn't really a great mix. On the left, this is when I did just the unicorn prompt and the design up front. And this is the result I got. Much better than the first one. And so to Mike's point, Replit actually did better when I just gave it the unicorn prompt and didn't give it like day by day or add more information. The unicorn prompt was enough, and also adding designs up front helped this build. This was not like Frankenstein afterwards. It was straight to the point at the beginning, and Replit did its thing. Now, does it look exactly like the screenshots? No, but the intention there is there with the darker background, the red buttons, the time being in the middle with the circle and the little dot to go around when the timer is set. So it did a much better job when I gave it those constraints. So first attempt, I would say 90% there, minus some of those visual designs. It did not have JavaScript, but the framework was React, TypeScript, and Byte. Again, missed the category colors for some of the predefined categories. Works really great on mobile. There's a bit of a lag when I was testing on the stop and saving the session, but that went away as it continued to debug itself. Designs didn't come through, and then also the bar chart wasn't initially there. But for its first attempt and going through those motions, like it was definitely 90% there. So this is kind of like a combination or a mix of wanting to show you like what we wanted to compare Lovable and Replit against. And so I'll throw it back over to Mike to kind of talk through Lovable and the metrics we put on the side. And then I'll also talk back about Replit as well.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you. So this week for the first time, it was Monday or Tuesday. Actually, I think it was we met on what Tuesday was it, Carlene? And so after you and I talked, I went and I took one of my old projects that I built in Lovable one time, and I logged into Replit and I pulled the repository into Replit and I had it rebuild it. And I was watching it kind of go to town on my code, and I was blown away. It was so amazing to me to watch it debug itself compared to what you have to do normally in Lovable, which is, I've got specific micro prompts that I use for debugging in Lovable, and you have to be very, very deliberate in telling it what to fix. So to watch that in Replit was refreshing, and I thought, man, I'm going to have to use Replit more. So it was very impressive. I do like that aspect of it. But overall, I'll say I was impressed with especially how Lovable handled the unicorn prompt here in this project. I felt at the end of the day, both projects were pretty good quality. I think one of the lessons learned for me, I was kind of surprised that the PRD version struggled so much, the complex version struggled with the design so much because I had given it that information up front. Like I said, it strayed far from the path of the screenshots provided. Eventually we got it back there, but that was a little bit frustrating. The quality I thought was pretty good. It did well with the feature implementation, aside from the buttons I wanted in the perpetual menu. As far as this respected the boundaries, so the unicorn prompt was easy, and Lovable did respect the boundaries with the complex build. It freelanced a little bit. It suggested things I didn't ask for. So it still has trouble with that. So you really do have to rein that in and be very specific with it. It did very well at creating a mobile first app. It renders very well on mobile, works well on mobile. So as far as processing prompts, again, the unicorn prompt went easy and smooth. The complex build, a little bit of a mixed bag. I think, when you want to talk about lessons learned, I liked Carlene's approach of start with the unicorn and then iterate from there, because I felt that first version with the unicorn prompt would have been a great starting point.
Yeah. And then on the Replit side, as you can see, that there's a difference definitely in the time it took the unicorn from Lovable to Replit. That is because Replit does the testing and debugging and consults an architect along through that whole journey. So you can see in the panel, in your agent panel, that it's testing in browser. So it brings up a browser and it actually, after it builds, it starts to test and debug on its own. So however long that takes for it to do, that's what it's gonna do. And so that's why you see the unicorn was 45 minutes. And I'll talk about this a little in lessons learned, but this is where you go take a break, you go do laundry, you go take a walk,
Mm.
you go make coffee, you go make lunch, do something, and come back, and then you will have something. So the unicorn definitely 45 minutes, and then PRD again because of the approach I took with looking at it day by day and like just making sure like iterating checking off, making sure all the features were there. It was over a span of days, which isn't bad, but it definitely wasn't as productive and fruitful as the unicorn on both ends. So 90% again on the quality, feature implementation, everything was there. Again, visual design, I think Lovable does a really great job of design. So I will say for sure, like Lovable, it right off the bat is gonna nail the visual designs. Whereas Replit, you either have to do it right up front or you're going to have to be patient to iterate on it as you go. So if you give it a prompt, tell it to build you a task manager app and you give it no design direction, it's going to do its own thing. And if you come in and try to like give it some design feedback in the middle, you're going to have to be patient with iterating on it and continuously getting there. You'll get there, but it is a bit of a process. Whereas Lovable kind of gets you there right from the start. Respective boundaries, very similar to what Mike said. Replit will make suggestions that it's the paths that you don't want to go down. And so you might see it when we flip back over to the builds that are happening now, but it will have a whole list of suggestions of like, and then we can do all of these things. Do you want to do these things? And I'm like, no, I actually don't. Like, I will tell it, thank you, that's it for today. Like, I talk to it like I'm working with another person. And so the boundaries they have gotten better at stopping before they do the thing. But sometimes things will show up, features will show up that you didn't ask for. So yes, but that was something I had to watch out for. Mobile, hit it on the head. And then prompt processing, there's just a lot of iteration and focus required with the PRD, whereas the unicorn basically got it on the first try.
So what did we learn? And I covered a couple of these already. Very clearly, in my opinion, Lovable did very well with the one-shot prompt. Still, and I think that'll probably go for a lot of these no-code platforms, the more detail you can provide, the better it's going to perform. I found early on when I started with Lovable back in the springtime that micro prompting was good. But now it has a new agent mode that they released this summer that handles complex prompts a lot better. So micro prompting, I don't feel works as well. It does still work pretty well for debugging. I will give it that. I mentioned the improvisation. Most of my prompts and conversations with Lovable include the words "do not over engineer," because if you don't tell it that, it's going to create a super complex solution. And many times I'll have to, well, I shouldn't say many, but several times I'll have to go back in and I'll say, please reanalyze the solution presented and let me know if it's over-engineered, and it'll catch itself. So you do have to stay on top of it and read the plans that it spits out to you. The PRDs are definitely helpful. Lovable has a knowledge section, kind of like Replit, where you could put in instructions for it to follow through the whole project. But I find that really prompting and reminders are the key to keeping it on task. You know, reminders to go review the product requirement documents are helpful. And then use chat mode as much as you use build mode. You know, the conversations that you're going to have with it, really focus it on what you're trying to get to, because it'll misinterpret what you say sometimes. So chat mode is invaluable. And then the design specs and visuals, those are always helpful. Like I said, it kind of goes back to giving it as much information as you can. Be specific, tell it where you want it to go, talk to it frequently, and it'll usually get you there. And I'll say the last thing I want to add, and I said this when we were in Fargo in July, it amazes me. One of the things that impresses me about the whole AI industry right now is the access that you have to founders like Scott, or even on the Lovell side. They've got these Discord servers and Slack channels, and you've got power users on there, and you can hop on these things and talk about anything that you want to find out about the platform or learn from the platform. The communities to me are amazing. I think that's one of the reasons this technology is evolving so rapidly.
Plus one of that for sure. Flipping over to Replit. So again, works well with the one-shot unicorn prompt plus design. That is something that I've learned in other builds that I've worked on. And it still stays true for those. The step-by-step works, but that's when it's coming to like iterating and fixing bugs and things of that nature. The more detail you can provide, the better. Be intentional about telling Replit to be intentional. So there are times where I will tell it, do not change anything else. Just focus on this one piece. And one of the new features that Replit actually has, I think it's in beta and it's not for everybody yet, but it's editing a specific component in the code and in the actual app. So you can isolate, like you just want to change this calendar picker, or you just want to change this timer, and it will only make edits to that. So I have to tell it to like, just focus on this, do not change anything else, keep everything the same. And if you're thinking too, like, well, if you do all of these things and it's wrong, there are rollback features in Replit that allow you to roll back to a certain version so you don't lose everything. You don't always have to go with the suggestion. So again, read into the agent, read into the code. You're an active participant in this too. So what I learned is that really look into what they're suggesting. And sometimes it actually is a good suggestion. So you can be able to pick and choose what feels right for you. Tell it when its work is over for the day. Sometimes when I get to a really good place and I get nervous about adding anything else on that day, I will say, this is great job for today. That'll be it. Have a good evening. And then it'll save it, shut it down, and I come back the next day. Build it into your workflow. Like I mentioned, sometimes these things can take a little while, especially like that first build with Replit. So what I'll do is I'll set it, tell it what to do, go do laundry. Like I call it my Sunday reset. I go do errands and chores and come back. And then I'll tell it to do something again and go and do something else. So this really allows for it to work while I also can be productive as well. And check out the context file to review and ask questions. There's a file in Replit that I would refer to, like when I was going through the step-by-step prompts and just checking everything, they would actually just share with you like its whole process on why it built it, the way it built it. And then also you can see the front end stack, the back end stack, what it's using for data storage and things like that. So that's a really cool thing that I learned to do, and that was helpful in just reviewing and making sure all the things were there. And then also, it's a continuous learning thing with the design side of investing more time in design when it comes to Replit. All right. So we incorporated Chip into our products. So this gets to the question that came up in the chat. And Mike, you can set it up.
Yeah, sure. So Carlina came up with the idea for the chat assistant. So we shared the idea here, and then you could see the prompt. I shared that as well at that the link on the page. We did. I do have a prompt generator that I use for my my Chip apps. So that's where we generated this prompt from as well. And so you can see
Let's see.
the Chip
Okay, right
integration.
here. Yep.
This is Carlini's here.
Oh, this is level.
Did we switch it? I thought you were first.
Oh, I am. I skipped a slide.
That's
Here we
right.
go. All right. Yes. Replit. So I took the prompt that Mike gave, and then went into Chip, and I built out the app. So called it Timewise, gave it the instructions. I picked Claude as my model. Just because I wanted it to be, I like to use Claude for a lot of like technical things and structuring documents and things of that nature. So I put it into Claude, gave it the basic information, went over to a share page and set up my API keys, got the example request. And then I went over to Replit and told it, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to create like a chat assistant within this app. that's going to do the following, gave it the information about the API key and example request, and it did it. It did the integration. It took less than, was that one of them was 18 seconds of work, and then the other was maybe like 5 minutes. And I have now, as you can see, this is the mobile version, the timer report, and it added a tab for chat. And there you can ask it all the questions, and it's actually being powered. Like the answers were pretty good. And so this took less than 10 minutes, super easy to follow. And also, Maria did a tutorial on how to integrate Chip with Replit that's available on YouTube and in some of the Chip Academy spaces where it makes it really easy to do this. So this is something that didn't take a lot of time, and also I think added the benefit of it doesn't go in and know like what time you spent based on the timer. We didn't have time to make it that intricate, but it does help. We thought that it would be nice to be an assistant to help you plan out your work. So if you're like, oh, I have a big project to break down, how should I think about breaking down the work? And then you can use the timer to time yourself and break that work down into chunks. So that's how it's kind of related.
Yeah, so the Lovable integration was very similarly easy. I actually learned how to do this from Maria's tutorial as well on Replit, but it was easy to apply it to Lovable. So it's pretty straightforward. Once you create the app in Chip, you just need to use the API to integrate it with Lovable. And so similar to what Carlene did, that was what I did as well with mine. And you'll see it if you go and test the app. I built it as a drawer slide out from the right side. So when you tap the TimeWise AI Assistant button, it'll slide out and you can talk to it. And the goal of it, really, going back to Juan's question, was to give feedback and time management advice. Ultimately, I know because I looked into this, there is a way to integrate it with live data using things like Google Sheets and Notion and N8N or Zapier, to where it could actually record the information of your usage of time, and then you can live interact with it and ask it things like, how much time did I spend exercising, or how can I better optimize my day so I have time to, play with the kids at the end of the day. So it can get there. We'd like Carlene said, we just didn't have time to get it there. But it's a good way to add something to your apps that you vibe code and have that AI assistant interact with it. Ooh,
All right. And the winner is of which tool is the best. They both win. And we came to this conclusion because we both are of the same mind that it really just depends on what you're building. As you can see, Lovable and Replit can get you the functionality you need, can get you the tools or bring your idea to life in different ways. But one has a strength in visual design, the other has a strength in being more full stack. So we take the approach of kind of mix and matching and saying like you have permission to change your mind and use both to build. There have been times when I use not Figma, Lovable designs and screenshot those and send it over to Replit. So that's just an example of how we are thinking about this. And this is why they both win, because it just depends on what you're building and it depends on what you want and how you work best.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, we are, vibe coding, the term was coined in February of this year. And, it's been a wild ride of people jumping on the bandwagon, but it's really evolving. When I say we're in the Wild West, I mean, this is literally like people are just making it up as they go along, and it is wild out there. And so from when I started vibe coding in March till now, Lovable has come out with different versions and updates almost weekly. So it's so different from then to now. And I'm imagining it's the same with Replit or Bolt or V0 or, Cursor, you name it. There's a lot of different tools out there. If you want to try it, pick one and go, see how it works.
All right. We're going to leave it open for a Q&A now.
That's amazing. Well, thanks so much for everyone for sharing. We just got a couple minutes, so feel free to unmute and ask questions. While you're doing that, I'll let you know that we will share this recording and also add this into our academy. If you want to stop screen sharing for just a second, I'll show people where those will live, and feel free to drop your questions in. But Thanks for sharing your expertise. If you go, probably the best place to stay up to date on what's happening, both this event and future, you can just go to our updated blog. Just relaunched it this week. So ship.ai/blog. We'll have a post here that'll go live with the recording, including video highlights. So you can kind of get the highlights and then kind of a written summary. So that'll be a good way to go back to this. And then from here, you can always get to our academy up here. The academy is where you can learn about vibe coding and chip. You can learn about how to use it for specific use cases. You can find events like this one. So that's kind of where you'll see and learn more.
So this was the result of the, assuming you can see it, this is the result of our one-shot prompt in Lovable. And you could say, let's try if I can type this in a couple seconds. Happy today. See what happens. I got a 73 mood score, so it's really quick. If you look at how long it took to build this, it was actually 3 minutes and 42 seconds for it to come up with this design and make it work. So pretty cool. That was the result of Lovable on that prompt that we both used for this live demo.
All right.
Kicking back to you.
Yes, that was great. I love that. It worked. Functionality and design are there. Now, Replit still working. It is not done.
Oh, wow.
But you see over here, real time, that it's literally getting into the nitty gritty. There are 4 steps here. It's on 2, and it's going through and
Oh my God.
testing everything in browser and doing the debugging, testing. It will tell itself, oh, I found something. Let me go fix it. So this could be another 20 minutes. This could be another 10 minutes. But what it's getting me already, I like it. I like where it's going. So as you can see, we got the title, entering the text, very similar to Mike's. And then it has some example text that I don't think we told it to do really. But it's going and it's doing its thing. So I can always send this out after. But yeah, this is real time live demoing and kind of like seeing the differences in how both of these act and how much time it takes. So
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing. Thanks to everyone for joining. We'll be having more events like this coming up. So we'll email you the replay. Hope you'll join us on the blog for more. And I'm sure Mike and Lene can share some more builds for us to share in the future. So we'll include links to what they actually end up building and you can test them out, see how your moods are. I'm happier having everyone here. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time at our next chip workshop. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody.